And she might be able to give me an estimated percentage based upon that information, because they have more detailed information than we have here.
Yeah.
So I can ask her at our next meeting if she can give me an estimated percentage of the amount from tourists.
They used to have that data tracking that would tie in with cell phones and credit card usage that might, I don't, just as an estimate, it would be an interesting number to see if that's still the case.
I can send her an email tomorrow and ask her if she can provide that to us, and then we could talk about it again at the next meeting. So if you look at the bottom of our chart, at the end of February in 1920, we were at 7.9, and today we're at 8 million. So we even have still an increase of 125.5 over prior year. And I don't see that decreasing so much. So when I do meet with our sales tax consultant, we basically go more by category. So the categories can be auto, home improvements, food, restaurants, and then retail. And obviously home improvements is very high, and vehicle purchases is very high. And internet sales are very high in addition. So we don't see a big, huge decrease in any of the categories. We did have obviously from the rest more of a decrease in the restaurants because they were only doing carry out for long periods of time. But some of that was offset by people going to Walmart and shopping, or people going to Target. And also, the home improvements, everybody's either redoing their house or their gardens or that such. So that's why we didn't see as much of a decline in the sales tax as we anticipated. And most cities like ours went on the worst case scenario when we did these projections, because we didn't know which way this was going to go. So that's why David Reddy decided to do a rolling budget, and we meet quarterly and give an update.
And you think that will continue?
We hope so. Our sales tax is 2 months behind. So what we received in true taxes 2 months ago is what we'll get this month.
So I have a comment and a question. And I know this was brought up in other meetings too. So it seems like home improvement, purchasing of automobiles and internet purchases would definitely kind of skew towards residential or resident people making those purchases over tourism. At least in this last fiscal year, I think the residents have really stepped it up with all the home improvement and, buying a new car or whatever internet purchases. A lot of that's not internet purchases. If they're a tourist, I don't think translates to our, because they're getting taxed based on where the product is shipping to.
Well, we did have a discussion about that earlier today. We're getting an S&P rating, and we went through a lot of this information, and our debt consultant brought up, if you come out here, which Amazon is now more on schedule than they were at the beginning. If you were a Prime member and you order something, generally you would get it the next day. But if you're an avid Amazon shopper, either they were out of stock during the COVID period, or your Prime wouldn't be delivered for 2 or 3 days. So our consultant brought up, well, if you're on vacation staying at a Airbnb vacation rental and you need something, and Amazon, you are a Prime member, why not have it delivered the next day rather than have to get in the car and go to Costco or anything of that sort? So she had said that it could be possible that a lot of the online sales, depending on what they are, could be through our visitors. Now, we talked about it before, there's a big influx from last year. Let's say that hotels had a higher TOT revenue than vacation rentals. And we've seen a shift this year that the vacation rentals are now bringing in more TOT than the hotels. So there's been a big shift in that TOT revenue from visitors coming here, even during the summer. Our peak season is not July, August, and September, but even when the temperatures were at 125 degrees, they were coming out here.
Mm-hmm.
They also, I heard reports, and this may add to the sales tax thing too, is that when they came, the average length of stay had increased significantly. So rather than coming for a weekend or a long weekend, they were there for a week or 2 weeks or even 3 weeks. But
And I
that's,
know, yeah, that plus I know, and I'm not sure because Veronica deals with mostly the vacation rentals, but I've heard them talking on, Zoom meetings and stuff, that it's required that a 30-day stay is required during COVID.
there was a 14-day quarantine period. So they had, if they were coming, so they had to, out of state, so they had to do it, but they were doing short-term rentals.
Right.
So, but for the out of state, they didn't, but regardless, they were coming for 2-3 weeks. So those would count as tourist dollars.
Yes, correct.
So Nancy, my question also on the 11,069,000 revenue, this is just Q1 and 2 total?
Oh, that's why I want to add that column. So our original budget was 5.9, and yes, we have increased it to 11. So that's what we have collected in 2 quarters. So this is through, we increased it through December.
So we could be on track to having one of our biggest budgets ever.
We could be, yeah.
I mean,
But-
Q3 might dip a little, or no, Q3 won't dip. Probably
Can I
neither
just-
will.
Can I just clarify though, this is the revised budget for the entire year,
Yeah, so rolling.
but it's not, has this all been received and then the budget says nothing more is coming in, or does it?
Now, this is what has been received through December.
11,069,000 through 6 months actual.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm
That's what I'm
pulling
saying.
up my revenue.
And we're just now ramping up as far as busyness in the city. So if we have a good Q3 and we're likely to have a very good Q4, we could have our best
That's
year
stunning.
in the history of Measure J.
Wait, I apologize because I'm working on so many different things and so many budgets and reports. As of February, I'm sorry, that was Marcus's projection. So as of February, we received 8 million if you look below. So we anticipate getting more in for the next quarter and hopefully up to the 11 million. So I don't know, it's hard to project if any more is going to come in or not, but we're anticipating it will.
So the issues that I see in some of the tourism is that if it keeps up the way things are going now, then this would continue to get revised and would probably get close to the 16 million or more. The issue, what they're not sure is how much of a difference between the current tourism and resident levels versus a spring without, when we would have Coachella and other major events.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions for Nancy?
Nancy, this is really helpful. The ramp rate it's all positive. This is encouraging.
Yes, yes. And we're already working on next year's budget. And I refused, no, not really refused. I thought it would be best for us to do a 1-year budget instead of a 2-year budget for several reasons. One is because we still don't know what's going to happen. So I don't want to go through the process of doing a 2-year, and we're going on a brand new ERP system on July 1st. So all the manual spreadsheets that we have to keep, we won't have to keep anymore. And eventually, if I get staff back, we're going to do a 5-year projection.
Nancy, what is ERP?
I'm sorry. It's a new finance system. I can't remember the exact name for it.
That's the software.
Yeah, that's a software program, because right now we're running on 3 or 4 different ones, and all of our budget is on Excel files manually keyed into the current system, one by one. Yeah, so every time one change, you got to change like 10 different things. So thank you for being so patient with us. We appreciate it. And it's going to track your projects. So Joel doesn't have to keep all his manual spreadsheets either.
Nancy, let me ask you a question without being devil's advocate. When you say you're going to do when it's back a 5-year projection, how could you have projected the last year that we're going through now?
Actually, I am working on that now. And what I think I'm going to do, keep it simple. So what we call it is a rolling budget. Basically, what you got for your expenditures last year, non-capital project items is what you're going to get this year. And I think the revenues I'm going to use are actual revenues from 18-19. Unless something else comes up, another virus or something happens. But that's how we're probably going to do the projections for 21-22 budget.
Can I ask a couple questions on the budget then?
Sure.
So when we're looking at things, because now we have extra money, so potentially we could reinstate some of the things that were canceled. But for instance, the downtown property maintenance and other expenses, we're not going to need that because there's no park. Is that right? That there's
No,
no.
the park was approved to go through.
No, I know, but the 575,000 that's on here, that would never come back in this year.
I think it would, because you still have to maintain the park, right?
For the 2021?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Let me go in there and see what's been spent so far.
Because presumably these other ones that we canceled, the emergency generators or the citywide HVAC, if now that we have this extra money, we could reinstate. But that
So it looks like there's an encumbrance of $229,000. So I have to see what do the detail to see what that is. So there is money being spent, but I have to go and do a report to see what encumbrance that is. Do you know, Joelle, by any chance?
Well, just to clarify, it's not the downtown park. I think Commissioner Bertschy, were you referring to the downtown park maintenance as an item? I think it's really the downtown expenses that is budgeted for.
Yeah, there's a specific crew for downtown that's funded through Measure J. So the workers that do the pressure washing of the sidewalks and all the little maintenance things, the irrigation, the landscaping, there's a specific crew for downtown, and that's what it's being for. So,
and I think they pared that down or took that and maybe used money from other places to continue that work, just at a lesser scale.
okay. So the question, I guess the question still is, if they found other means, is that something we should consider putting back in, or is that just not?
In a conversation with Marcus, I think I would assume that money is still going to be required, because as we ramp up and we have need more staff for the downtown, that money will still be required. So I would expect that money will eventually come back. Maybe not in this fiscal year, but maybe in the next fiscal year.
Okay.
What's being carried now, what's been zeroed out, whether intentionally or inadvertently, what's being zeroed out in the revised budget 20-21 probably needs a revision to designate something for this current year, correct?
It looks like graffiti protection, landscaping.
Yeah, so you're correct. I think if we look at that, maybe Nancy could look at it. The encumbrance of the 270,000 or whatever it was, that may need to get back into this budget.
Okay. And the airport reserve, I mean, I guess basically, would that come back?
No, that's a requirement by the FAA.
But it's taken out of this budget now. Would that come
Yeah,
back?
it's taken out of the revised.
Let me see. I'd have to look into that. I know Mark June at the airport said it was some type of FAA requirement. The airport reserve. No. Oh, it's taken out of the revised budget. It'll probably have to go back in.
Mm-hmm.
But there's less aviation fuel sales, so it may.
Yeah, but I mean, going not for this fiscal year, but probably next fiscal year.
Okay.
The airport's pretty crowded right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
sorry, go ahead, Jeffrey. I was simply going to say that you have flagged one, two, maybe a few items that, while they're carried currently as a zero, shouldn't be zero. They should be something, and that maybe needs a little bit more diligence.
yes, you said it better than me. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Last time Marcus mentioned that there was potentially $1 million in from somewhere else. I can't remember that discussion. That could be for street paving. Does anybody else remember that?
I don't remember that, but I do remember that we discussed the debt service. We refinanced the debt service bond and it was 3.2 million. And this year, because of the refinancing, it's only going to be 783,000.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and watch it. Marcus definitely mentioned that we could ask council for this $1 million for somewhere else. And I can't remember where, but I will check.
I recall that too, Jeffrey.
Was it, I think Naomi had mentioned requesting the transfer to the general fund, maybe come back from the general fund for the 2.8 million.
That could be it. Do you remember, Naomi? Commissioner Soto, sorry.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I think Marcus was saying that 2.8 was likely to change.
Okay. We'll go back and look at the video and see, and then.
Okay, any other budget concerns, questions? All right, we'll move on to old business. We're gonna look at an outline for capital projects and then talk about the pavilion landscaping. Just real quickly, staff, and this is probably more of a question for Marcus. I'm just curious, as Measure J dollars have been surprisingly better through the pandemic or have picked up some steam over the last quarter or so, I'm curious about just the general budget for the city. I've been asked, because people know I'm on Measure J, and they're like, well, how's the city doing? You must know, are they is the budget coming back? Because the economy looks strong here because of all the tourism. So I'm just kind of curious, because I know the city had to go through a lot of cuts, through personnel and programs, and landscape services got cut by like 50% and on. So I was just curious if we're seeing a little more of a brighter side to that as well.
So we are seeing our numbers are coming in stronger than we anticipated. We do have a new city manager starting on April 5th, I believe, and I'm hoping to have a draft budget to him. But the direction I got from the current city manager is to basically, and we focus more on the general fund than all the other funds. Like I said, most of the others are capital projects, that we're going to keep everything as is for next year expenditures. And then we'll have to get direction from the council and from the new city manager on what they want to add back. And one of the council members' recommendation is whatever we get that's above our projection, we need to take 50% of that and put it into a reserve fund to build our reserves back up.
To build that back. Okay.
And it's a good, Marcus did an excellent quarterly report presented in February. If you want to pull that up, it gives a lot of detail of what we received, when we received it, and all that. It's a very good report.
Okay, thanks. All right, Joel, I'll let you take it over on capital projects.
Okay, well, capital projects. Everyone did get the handout from March 18th. I'm assuming the memo. That's kind of what we're going to focus on. That's what's going to be the topic of our discussion today.
The March 18th, correct?
Yeah, March 18th.
Yeah. Yep.
So if everybody has that in front of them, I'm going to try to go through it. I want to be sure we get our nomenclature right first, right? I'm going to be using the term our 5-year CIP, which is our 5-year capital improvement program, which Don and I have been working on for a while. We're going to get the program itself outlines what we anticipate will be spent on projects over the next 5 years. And the way we did it is we tried to look at when we think, or as closely as we can assume when the project is actually going to go to construction. So if you have a project that's worth, say, $3 million, and we anticipate we probably will build it 3-4 years from now, our way of doing our 5-year CIP is to put aside, only maybe $1 million in year one, and then $1 million year 2, and then complete the rest of the funding in year 3 to be able to construct that project. So the term I'll use a lot is year 1, which year 1 in our conversation today is for fiscal year 21-22. So when I say year 1, that's what I'm referring to. That's basically the new money that I need next year for our projects. So that's sort of our nomenclature. Year 2, year 3, year 4, their projections or estimates, and those will always change. The 5-year CIP is a booklet or a program that we are going to eventually get our planning commission to adopt, and also our city council. So it'll be a living document that we update. That plays into the very first set of numbers here on this memo. The first item here, or the first 10 projects that I listed here, are from March 20th. Really, it's before the pandemic hit. And these 10 projects were the ones that staff was recommending at that time. Hey, we want to move. These are our top priorities. Let's fund them. Let's see how we do that. So is everybody pretty much comfortable with that description? There's 10 projects, and the total was about 26.5 million.
Did we meet
Yeah,
in March 2020?
Sorry?
Did we meet in March 2020?
We did not. Actually, Joel, that list was presented to us actually in
February?
at the January 16th meeting, 2020. We met again in February, and then our commission did not meet again until September.
Okay, so then that date is wrong. I must have just.
But you did give us a list at that time. It had 12 items on it. We removed 2 of the items, which was a replacement vehicle for Parks and Rec, and the gym floor for the James O. Jesse Center. That was removed because that was going to come in, I think, through a grant or something.
Right. So I started off wrong then right off the bat. I was trying hard to get those numbers right. The goal was to present what we as staff were bringing forward as recommendations. And I dug through my files and I got this list. So, I mean,
Yeah, and it's pretty accurate. And the only thing that's different is I think we voted out those 2 items. One item that's new now on this list is the citywide traffic calming budget. That's the first time I've seen that.
No, wasn't that presented by David? They were gonna do like a traffic assessment of the lights.
Oh, you know what?
Oh, that
You
was
are
the software.
correct.
Yeah, that was the cameras or the replacement of cameras in lieu of strips.
Okay, yeah, that was, I think he brought that up probably in one of our last
Yes.
meetings to have us consider that as an add-on.
Yeah, I thought we had taken off the pickleball courts at Sunrise though.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up because I talked to Sid about it too, and to Commissioner Bernstein, and we didn't think we wanted that to move forward either because there was so much questioning around
right. So
the library and the whole campus.
Right. No, I think I will say that if this list does include some of those projects that you eventually struck out, but it was sort of trying to go back to what, when we had money, what we were thinking. I must have sent this list and it got revised or changed, and I apologize for that. But the goal is not necessarily to concentrate on that. These did get struck out, and those were not being brought forward. The conversation is going to keep on going, and then eventually it'll all tie in. So if you'll allow me a little bit more. The second set of information, or on June 30th, the city council adopted the budget, right? This is where the funding from Measure J was used to basically it was applied towards the budget deficit, if you will. So this is the numbers below our canceled projects. I did present this in June 30th to the commission, correct? I think.
No, what the commission didn't meet until September.
This was on June 30th was a city council meeting, but this set of information in September made it to the commission as well.
We did have an emergency meeting because of the downtown park.
Okay, so
That's only That was the only
Sorry,
discussion.
Joel.
No worries. But I know on September 10th, I did present this information, essentially. I presented a memo to the Measure J Commission and showed where these projects were canceled and how that money was taken away from, or was used to fill the budget deficit. So I guess the goal is if we keep on going and you see these projects were the ones that were removed and the money was taken and used for the budget deficit. And if you keep on going down, I start presenting the draft 5-year CIP. And it sort of ties into the conversation I started with. The first set of projects are for fiscal year 1. And when we present the budget in year 1, which is fiscal year 21-22, this is how we would want to distribute Measure J dollars. So these are the projects. We'll start with 1806 Victoria and Ruth Hardy Park restroom renovations, emergency generator facilities, the city water treatment, the recreation field project, which if you see, it's not, that one is not only in year 1, it's also in year 2. So we're trying to add up money gradually to be able to construct the project. And then, 20-03 city project, that is the Roundabout project, which we want to start building up money to be able to construct it. And the last one here, 2101, is the annual pavement rehabilitation. So that's the $3 million that you would normally give to the city to do the pavement rehabilitation. So does that make sense, or do you follow how these projects there would take some money in year 1, and if they're multi-year projects, we would continuously add to it until we got to construction?
Yeah, I do have a question, sorry, about the 1 through 15 list right above it, on page 1 and 2. So
Sure.
the canceled projects are things that we approved but got cut because of COVID. And then active projects, I don't really understand the difference between active projects not in construction and the inactive projects. So the inactive projects are ones that we hadn't, there is 6 through 15 all ones that we had approved before, or like I'm confused as to how this breaks out. I understand the 1 through 5, but the 6 through 15.
So the 1 through 15 were projects, and Don will correct me if I'm wrong, were projects where the commission had already set aside funds for it, and they became projects, and we created an actual project for them. And then those broke out individually into different categories. There was one where we completely canceled, we didn't do any work. There was others where we were actively working on them, but we stopped them, and then the money was taken away. And others were just completely inactive, we hadn't done any work on. So that's how those break out. Does that sort of?
Oh, I see. So we had approved them, and it's just a matter of how far along the process.
Yeah, we broke them. Yeah, exactly. That's how Mark is trying to describe it. This is directly from the council meeting where the budget was, when the budget deficit was being discussed, and this is how it went out. I just grabbed it to present it here.
Yeah, so 6 through 11, some work was done on it, and you can see all the numbers are, so many cents. They're all funny numbers. That's because staff, either charged time to it or, spent a little bit of money on that project. And what happened was after COVID, to help with the shortfall, any money that hasn't been used yet was moved over to help with the budget shortfall.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what 6 through 11 is.
Thank you. That's super helpful. Thank you so much, guys.
And
Okay, so go ahead.
I'm sorry, I know there's a lot of questions here.
No worries. I'll try to describe it. It's a lot of information and it wasn't properly laid out, but I think the more I added, the more complicated it was going to get. So this is good to start the conversation, and then Don and I can sort it out and try to help you guys understand.
No, and it's fairly clear. And in the inactive projects, could some of these start up at a moment's notice?
Right. So I'm going to go through that discussion as well.
Okay, and then one more question. As we look ahead, year 1, year 2, as far as I can tell, these are all approved projects that we're discussing. They're already approved.
Yes, I think the 21s are newer ones. Let me see, I can go to They're mostly we've already discussed these projects.
Right. I just wanted to just clarify for everybody that.
Most of these, right. And I'll go through that discussion, and it's kind of, we're going to go bounce a little bit back and forth. So I can try to see if I can tie it together. And at the end, we'll all end up understanding what I try to say in this memo. So let's go back to the list of 1 through 2.
Commissioner Robert has a quick question too.
Sorry, Joel, just this will help set the table a little bit, I think, at least for me. As you go through years 1 through 5, and you've applied dollar amounts, whether you do this as your narrative here or consider the next version of this, are the dollar amounts you're carrying for each year, and let's use city water treatment, for example, $100,000. Could you distinguish whether it's the case of we want to draw 100,000 and spend 100,000, or we want to draw 100,000 so that we can start building up idle cash over time?
So I think it's the latter. We want to draw cash to start building it up over time. That allows us at any point, if we are able to get the design going, we have the money to start the design and move the project forward. The goal is to get the money over time so that at the end of the whatever fiscal year you have all your money, you can actually then go out to bid and construct that project.
So let's stick with that example with the city water treatment, 1927. In year 1, you can see $100,000. So whatever we spend in year 1, let's say we spend $90,000, there's 10 left over. So that 10 left over will carry on to the year 2. And then in year 2, 1927 city water treatment, we're going to ask for another 100,000. So whatever rolls over from the previous year plus this budgeted 100,000 will be for year 2. And then we go to year 3, we're going to ask for 307,500. So whatever is left over after year 2 will get rolled over, and then we're going to add the 307,500. So that's so previously how the city has been funding these projects is saying, hey, we need 507,500, and so let's give it all in year 1. And it's just like, well, we're not going to spend it all in year 1, so let's budget it kind of like a cash flow. So basically, we'll budget what we need for that project, allowing us the freedom to do more projects and use the money when we need the money. So that's kind of just an example of how we're going to pivot from how we used to do things and start planning it over the next 5 years. And then, obviously every year we'll make adjustments as we get better information, but we just kind of need to project out rather than tying all 507,500 into one project.
I wasn't as
okay.
Either I wasn't as clear as I was trying to be, or I was making it more nuanced than I meant to be. When you recognizing that with your projects, you have a lot of front end soft costs for a multi-year project, and if you could just, as we work on this together, if you could help demarc where the need of, say, $100,000 is to spend around $100,000 versus we're going to park 100,000 and probably not need much of it because we simply want to build up and not get short on a big project in 3 or 4 years. I'm looking at it in a bulky value rather than knowing you can't put a pin on a hard number year over year over year, but instinctively, intuitively, I don't like the idea of taking a slug of money and having it sit, which is different from put a slug, you're going to use it, and whatever's left over carries over because you need to carry it over.
Right, and that's sort of what Don was trying to describe, that's the way we've been doing. We've been putting all of it in the very beginning, and it just sits there.
Yeah.
And then over time, we've been saying we use $10 of the 2 million, we used 100 of the 2 million, and we would report that, and it became a huge spreadsheet.
Yeah.
We can still report what we use in year one. I was going to try to share my screen and kind of give just a quick glimpse of, yeah, you guys have questions, go ahead.
I do, just specifically about that, the water treatment. So we did precisely what you said you didn't want to do. We had budgeted 600,000 already for 1920. That was, I guess, the whole thing. And then was completely taken away. But now we potentially could put things back into the 2021. So if we go forward with this 5-year plan, are you ignoring the 2021 money we could put in, or you don't need that, or?
We're not ignoring it yet. We haven't gone to that conversation of where we think we should put that money. I think we can. Some of it might get carried over and then distributed, but we haven't gone to that conversation. I was sort of building up to it. So the last conversation is, what do you guys want to do with the 7 million? Here's some thoughts, and we would close out that way. So building towards that. Sid.
Under the canceled projects, emergency generators, number 4, was $1,149,000. And then it shows in 2021, 600,000, and in 2022, 23, 777,500. So it's increased because of the cancellation. Am I reading this right?
So if we didn't get our math right, to go really what we're supposed to do is get what we thought the total cost was and distribute it over several years. So they could be, if those numbers are not adding up, it could be just simply that it was a math error. But though
So I think the price did escalate. You know, the 1 million from before. You know, I think Jim and I mean you remember seeing that number for I don't know how many years, and then as we get better information, we update our cost estimates, what we think might be for design. So yeah, the numbers did change, and it did increase. You know, the longer we wait, the costs do go up. So anytime we get better information, we do update the dollar amounts. So it did go up, and so we're thinking we would need more money for that particular emergency generator.
right,
I'm only asking that because I would hate for it to be canceled a second time, and then it goes up again when by definition it's for emergencies.
right.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're correct. So getting back to the conversation I wanted to go through the first list and kind of show where some of these projects that were priorities before we want to reevaluate. If they dropped off already, you know, please excuse that the list is probably wrong, but if we dropped them off, they dropped off. So if we go back to list 1 through 10.
Joel, can you still do the screen share so we can look at what you're?
I was going to share a draft version of the CIP just to give you a sort of a feel for what what Don and I have been working on, and Measure J is just a portion of it. So I'm going to try to screen share. It'll be quick, and I'll get back to the conversation. Okay. So. So is everyone seeing the screen here?
Yes.
All the numbers. So this is just a quick preview of what the draft CIP looks like. So on the right side, you'll see all our different funds, one of which is Measure J. And if you look at the bottom line here, if the numbers are correct, and we're still projecting for year one, which we would be spending about $51 million in capital projects. That's just a quick view of what we're working on. And like I said, Measure J is just one of it. And we're doing that for all the funds. I'm going to scroll down one more, and I'm going to zoom in here. So for like our bridge project, we're projecting possibly spending maybe, what's the total cost of the project? It's like it was almost $20 million. No, what was that? The addition is not there, but anyways, this shows that we're working with different funds And each year, we're trying to project how much money we'll need till we get to the completion of that project. So, and I'll just scroll down real quick. So these are all our projects, and we've done that for every single one. I'm trying to project the different funds that we're using and how much money we need over the next 5 years. So that's sort of how we've been going with our CIP, and this particular conversation is just about the Measure J funds. So if I go back to that first list, and now we can start talking about what we can do with the money we have and how we can project it. So the very first one I thought was, we did bring it up at some point, which is the traffic calming. We wanted to set up a budget that we could get money every year, because we get so many requests for traffic calming and our money runs out fairly quickly. So I thought that was an idea, Don. I don't remember exactly when it came in or how it dropped off of the list, but so if I were to say, I want to create, or at least have Measure J fund traffic calming, provide us a budget, I would do that for $300,000 every year, very similar to the construction of the pavement reconstruction. So I would ask for that money years 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that's a conversation we can have later. So the next one was the fire security gates. I think that one dropped off from our list, but I think it's one of those that's been sitting around for a very long time, and we want to reevaluate it. We want to go back to the fire station and fire department and say, is this something you really need? And if so, how much do you, we'll do a new analysis of the cost, and we could bring it back later on. I think the big one here is the fire station #1 expansion and renovation as well. I think that one needs to have a bigger conversation. That's item number 3 with the fire department and with to see if we're really going to do an expansion or renovation, if we're going to buy a new property. So I want to that one, I wanted to drop it off the list until we were further ahead and we understood better what a budget would be. And then we would bring it to Measure. It would become a project in our CIP. So that one dropped off the list. The same thing with the police impound facility. I think we need to reevaluate that. If there's still the need, I think we need to go back and find out exactly what the cost estimate would be, then bring it back to Measure J and create a capital project for it. The Indian Canyon Roundabout, that one, I'm gonna start tying it to years, the fiscal years. So Indian Canyon Roundabout, I have it set for funding for 4 years, year 1, 2, 3, and 4, and possibly constructing that in year 4 when we have all the money. So, yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt on this one.
No, go ahead.
And I realize all of these have been approved projects, correct? This whole list, as far, or potential projects, but they haven't been approved by council except a few of them, correct?
Correct.
Now, could something like the Indian Canyon Roundabout, we've lived now with Indian Canyon being two-way for a little over a year. I go through that intersection frequently, and I have not had a real issue with it the way that it's set up currently. In fact, really with the Indian Canyon two-way, the biggest traffic mess is between La Plaza and Tockwitz. That's where it gets the most congested.
Okay.
I'm just curious, is this something that could also be reevaluated as we reevaluate a lot of these? Could this be proposed to council to say, you know what, do we need to spend, over $1 million for a roundabout, or over $2 million for a roundabout that might not be necessary?
I think we want to give council that opportunity. We had commissioned a design. We got to the stage of the preliminary stage and exhibit level drawings, and we wanted to present it to council, and we just haven't been able. The whole pandemic just kind of stopped the whole project, and we want to bring that back and we'll present it to council. When that could be a conversation that could be had, whether it's needed or not, or how it originated, and is that true, a project that truly should move forward.
Yeah, and I guess I would leave it to my fellow commissioners, not at this time, but we've all discussed some of these projects and we've had opinions on them, and I think collectively we've agreed with each other on some things that could be taken out, removed. I just feel like, okay, we pressed pause on that project. We've had a year to live with it. Traffic has been picking up, and I still don't have an issue whenever I've driven through that intersection, and it's usually once a day,
Right.
it's not been an issue. And I realize some money has already been spent on planning, but you know, I could plan to remodel my entire house and spend $1 million on it and spend 10,000 to get plans and then lose my job. And, you know, would I still go forward because I don't have the money? I mean, this is maybe an opportunity where we could save $2 million and
Right, and I think
kick
that's
the
what
can down the road.
I think that's what the commission has a right to do. We can present it as staff to council. They can make the decision whether they want to move it forward with capital money and not necessarily Measure J money. So that's also a possibility. I mean, you have a good point that, right, you drive it every day, but I truly believe that we haven't seen the heavy traffic because of like during the festivals, does it really become a big issue? So I think we can still monitor it, and yeah, the decision could be made that we don't want to move forward with it, or we don't want to use Measure J money for it. We want to use another funding source, maybe a grant or something. So
yeah, and again, I know I'm sharing a pretty strong opinion, you know, I definitely would want everyone to weigh in on it. But again, today was a very heavy day of traffic, and believe me, it was backed up big time as you get to downtown. No issue by the Sun Center, zero. You know, went right through, not a problem. But and that's
I agree with you, Jim.
how it is.
That's not a location that bothers me.
okay,
I'd be curious if it has been in development or in continuation to do a revised traffic study now that as Commissioner Kazan described, that we've been living with this for a year and it is a large ticket item.
yeah, that could be when we present to the council. That could be something that could be directed back to staff, and that's where we would proceed to. Yeah.
And again, I think we would all agree if it was a total cluster in that area, of course, it would be warranted. But I think there's more of a light timing issue as you get into downtown that probably needs to be addressed over that. But okay, I'm sorry for that interruption, but I felt kind of strongly on that one.
No worries. I think instead of going through the whole list, I'll just go down to pickleball courts at Sunrise. We definitely, it's not made it to our CIP, and we will reevaluate, look at it. So that the rest of them are in the 5-year CIP in different years. So that sort of, I want to kind of start opening up to an open dialogue to see if we want to discuss year one, or we want to start discussing the $7 million that's available right now to start putting towards projects. I do have certain suggestions and requests, but I'm also open to questions and just turn it back to the commission.
I mean,
Yeah,
I like.
sure.
Sorry.
Right. Yeah, Brian has that. Mr. Commissioner Robert.
Sure. As you look at the year one numbers, I'm wondering if there's an alternate version of year one that you've considered that accelerates spending. In other words, of the 10, let's call them 10 projects listed for year one, could you move faster on projects that could benefit from going faster? And if so, would you apply the money differently?
I think, and Don can also weigh in here, we are starting to look at it through the lens of having the capacity for staff to deliver projects as well. I know the intent is we have this money, you know, here it is, go build it. But staff also runs into, you know, staffing issues. We don't have, I'm not gonna say we don't have, but we run into the problem where we can't deliver projects as fast as certain folks would want them to. And that's what this 5-year CIP is starting to, for us, it's a tool of realism. We start showing everyone, hey, we have all these projects, there's 100 of them, you know, in year one, we want this much money. But we're going to start building some of these, and we only have the capacity to manage consultants, manage construction, work with commissions, and that's what we're starting to see. That's why it seems fairly small. Looking at it globally with our staffing ability, I think it starts becoming realistic to be able to deliver certain projects with the money. And no matter, sometimes if you throw a lot of money at it, at say a lot of projects, they won't get built fast. You
Okay.
still have to pace and be able to deliver those projects.
Yeah, very, very, very important and a good point. And I guess I just add to my question / comment that maybe there's an opportunity. I'll use recreational LED lighting, for example. If that multi-year project could be loaded into 1 year and staffing levels were efficient enough because it's an isolated project, put that in quotation marks, would that be something that you'd recommend as you consider these? In other words, bump a different project so that you can get one important project done in a year.
Yeah, so
versus spread.
I would say yes. This document, the CIP, and how we presented Measure J, we're calling it a living document. Some projects are to take priority over others. Some projects that need to be delivered faster will get the funding faster and be directed to do work faster. So yes, the answer to, I guess your question is we can do that. And this document is not going to be set. It's always going to be changing.
So yeah, to answer, let's take that same example, recreational fields LED. So let's say we finish the design, and then after that, we notice, hey, this is a pretty simple project. It could probably be built, really quickly within a year. So then we would look at what we budgeted for the second year, and if we can, pull forward money from future years, at least we have the documentation of how to pull money throughout the year. So but clearly the focus is year one. So every year one is going to be the next fiscal year, right? And we're projecting 5 years out. So as we get better information, we can definitely pull dollars and move money around and reallocate funds for the outer years.
Right, and yeah. I think the goal was going to be for this 5-year CIP, mid-year budget reviews. If things shuffle, projects come in, new projects need to get done, we create those, and then that's where it shows up in the budgets, and that's where we start our attention starts diverting to those projects. So we'll have a mid-year review where we can update this year one list.
So as Nancy said, we're going to do a 1-year budget coming up. So we're really going to focus on this year one. And then when we do the 1 year or 1 or 2 year budget next year, if it's a 1 year again, we'll really concentrate on one. And then year 2, 3, 4 is just kind of a running total. Like, hey, don't forget, we're going to need 3 million or 600,000 for this project, in outer years or. So you kind of understand. So if we do a 2-year budget next year, we're going to really concentrate on year 1 and year 2, and then kind of have an idea of what we're going to spend in year 3, 4, and 5. And so this booklet will change every year, get updated, and then as Joel said, when we do a mid-year budget adjustment, we'll also make revisions.
Commissioner Furter, yeah.
Oh. You want me, Jim? Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
I think this is really a good, logical layout of expenditure. And as projects move along, we always find out they cost more money. And this provides us an opportunity to be realistic about that and not at the end have to shift other monies around to compensate for over expenses. So I think you've done a wonderful job with this. It's very clear for me to understand what we need and how it can move. So thank you both for a lot of hard work here.
I think they did an excellent job. And this is, I think the city's first 5-year. And as Joel said, it's a framework, a plan. It will continue to change, but at least we have a sense of direction.
Yeah, I agree. It gives us, we can see how projects are actually moving. Sometimes we forget about a project, or we question where it is. And this breaks it out because we know that it's not all spent in one year. And I definitely appreciate the breakdown. Commissioner Bernstein.
No, I think it's terrific, and I think it's what we had sort of thought about with the library, with putting aside money each year. And I guess one question I have though is, because things do change, is this something that Measure J votes on, council approves, and it's sort of set, and then we have to figure out how to change it later, or this is just a guideline that we're going to go by?
I think that's not decided yet.
Okay.
I think I'm open to see how this plays out because it is the first year we're introducing it. I don't think we have a good understanding of how it would move forward through the commission and then to the council. So I'm open to suggestions. I think we take your input seriously. We create the budgets based on your input, and then we move it forward to council. So I'm really not sure how it is that the 5-year CIP ultimately will be approved by council, and which projects may get onto that will depend on our conversations that we have throughout the year, and how we create new projects based on budgets available.
Okay.
And I think that's the use of your time as commissioners, is that we use this as a tool that you can use to help make your decisions. Because like, as we've been talking, it's kind of always going to be changing as we get better numbers. You know, to have the commission keep blessing the changes, and, you know, it kind of creates a lot of red tape, right? Like, to keep having to wait for a commission meeting or a quorum or whatever to get the authorization. But if you have this information to help make your decisions, you know, so when we bring a new project, let's say it's the new library, you know, you can get an idea of how we could spread out the funds over 5 years, or and then, you know, make your motions to approve Measure D dollars that way. So it's kind of like one of the many tools we can bring to this commission to help you guys make your informed decisions.
Commissioner Soto has a question.
Yeah, so I agree that I think this is actually a really helpful tool to, I think, especially dialogue with staff and understanding the budget and how we're thinking each year. I would encourage the commission to think about, beyond the dollar amount, what are things that we need, not necessarily staff, but we need to keep track of, in understanding how these projects developed, who has kind of already presented on it. So I would really love and I'm not expecting it to be kind of followed quite as closely as kind of these dollar amounts. And again, I think it's really helpful for our conversations with staff, but as a commission, it'd be helpful to understand, like, how did this project come up? Was it identified through like staff and agency, or like a community member, or what other commissions have spoken about it, right? So has the library come to speak to us, or Parks and Rec, or whatever? Because if we're talking so many years out, those types of details like disappear so quickly. So that's just something to consider. I don't know if that's like in parallel to this, or something that we're just keeping track of on our own notes, but like, what are the few facts that are important for us to keep in mind these projects over several years, right? So that if there's any questions, we can say, oh, 5 years ago, the police came and told us they needed this, and there was a delay, and now we're finally there. Versus, you know, it came up in a community meeting, or the Parks and Rec came to us, or those kind of details are really hard to find unless you watch like 3 years worth of Measure J meetings, right? So again, not necessarily a question for like Don or Joel, but I would encourage like the other commissioners to think about like what would be helpful for us as we keep track of so many years ahead of us.
Good point.
I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to show you how we started tracking, or what the CIP book also helps. results. And this is going to be published, so you'll eventually have it at your disposal on the website. So I'm going to share my screen real quick, and this is somewhere where we could add notes and kind of comment, have that, and it'll be permanently recorded. So for every single project that we have going on, we've created a sheet, which tells you what the project is, where it's at, is it on hold, desirable. So certain things in the project description, we kind of say what it is, and then the justification. So this will be part of the CIP, and it will always be available. So here we can also make more notes. This project was originated by the library, the Parks Commission, and it could be a tool that you could use, or we could just add some notes here that could easily be referenced in the future as well. I mean, I'm not trying, and I think your commission, you're right, you should establish a way to keep track of those things as well, but this will be memorialized as part of the CIP.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that.
Yep.
And
Can I
Yeah,
ask a
so-
question on that one though, on the electric grid? Is it looking to expand it? Because I know Village Fest is limited.
Yeah, so the electrical backbone was intended to fix all the electrical problems, especially for Village Fest. But the cost was so astronomical that what it was ended up being is we're going to do it in phases. So we're going to start kind of near the Tockwitz area, upgrade the electrical kind of in that area, and then as more money can be saved up, we can go further along the boulevard. So there's distinct areas that they broke up the project into, but as you remember, the kind of like where they had the farmers market, that had a high need for electric upgrades, and then where they have the food service kind of by the hotel, that's another area. So and then the other areas, like they don't need as much electricity, so it's not as high a priority, but we wanted to prioritize the areas that needed it the most first.
So it doesn't include expanding the footprint of what's, because there's no lighting above Amato right now. So, okay.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so sort of that kind of wraps up our presentation, and I think we should, if you want to talk about the money available, where I think our recommendations would be, and the commission can make a vote or a recommendation as well.
Yes.
So there's 3 projects I think that we would like to recommend right now. One is the repaving project that was stalled. I don't know if the commission recalls that originally we were using 2 years worth of Measure J funding, and we moved forward with that project, and then before it completed, we had to stop it because of the whole budget deficit. So we stopped it shy of where we wanted to go. I think the money would be well spent on starting that project up again, completing what was remaining, and then also using the $3 million that you would normally program for pavement projects. So from staff's perspective, it would be nice to have the $5 million available to do a big paving project. One of the biggest complaints and calls for service is pavement reconstruction throughout the city. So we're constantly being asked to do that. And the other 2 projects are I actually listed them in year 1. So it's the Demuth Park restroom upgrades and the Desert Highland Park restrooms. Both of those restrooms do have funding from other sources, Quimby, and what's the other one? I had that primed right here. So they do have other funding sources, but as Commissioner Berger mentioned, that our budgets or the initial estimates of those projects was low. And when we went out to bid on the current project at Sunrise, we had 11 different proposals, and they range from 200,000, which was a 250. I think Commissioner Craig asked that question, to approximately 500,000. And as I looked at it, and in order to have a sound budget, I made a determination that a good construction estimate for the restrooms is around 350,000. So with that, I would need the additional funding to be able to put that project out to bid, and the park at Desert Highland, and I'm sorry, the restroom at Desert Highland and the park at Demuth would be, I would want to ask for funding for.
And you're talking about the restrooms which are inside Desert Island, not the new proposed out one.
No,
That-
the proposed one.
Right.
New proposed.
So we had previously budgeted 1.6 million for the parks, restrooms and ADA. Is the two restrooms you're included part of that or separate from that?
Those are completely separate. Those are brand new restrooms aside from the money for the ADA. That is still in our CIP, and it comes back in year 2, 3, and 4. I believe that we're requesting money for it.
So Joel, with these restrooms, these upgrades that are not new construction, you showed us in the last meeting that the city wants to maybe adopt a uniform restroom design for all these parks. So is this that?
That is exactly that. Yes, correct.
So at Demuth, it would be this new restroom, the little kind of single room stalls, as well as Desert Highland.
Correct. It would be the exact same. We are going back and getting slight variations of brick finishing, the block finish and the colors, but it's basically the exact same design.
Okay, and so basically the price tags would be kind of higher than the $200,000 figures and more around $350 each.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen on one of the sheets for that project to show you how I broke it out.
Also, what about Ruth Hardy and Victoria? They're not.
Those are all coming. Those are in year 1, but they're not. Those are renovations, right, Don? Those are not actual new construction, right?
So you couldn't do those now? Anyone, you don't have the bandwidth?
Correct. So
I don't even see the Sunrise Park. Is that in one of these years? I don't see it.
Sunrise Park is already budgeted for.
It's under construction.
Not included.
So think of it as year 0. Yeah, think of it as year 0 because it's currently under construction.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to share. Everyone see the screen here? So we have the construction estimate for Desert Highland Park, 350 for construction. We always keep some contingency, and we also pay for administration because our time also costs money. The design, I put $5,000 here because we do have to pay our architect to go in and make it a site-specific plan. There's some modifications, some structural modifications, some things, utilities. So this number is actually 7,000 right now. It's not 5. And then we actually have to manage the project. We sometimes will hire someone, but these are all budgeting numbers. So right now the estimate is around 460 for the total project. We have available in Quimby funds 250,000, and we would be asking Measure J for 210. And of course, if all these numbers come in different, or at least we don't use the construction management portion of it or the contingency, that money then just at the end of the year it goes back into the Measure J fund.
So Joel, is this typical of other cities that they have all these added line items?
For every single project, you need to account for all the soft costs. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And that's why, when we don't take our time and do a good estimate, we end up in positions where we're what I call the low bidder. And that's kind of one of our biggest things, that we don't want to be the low bidder. We want to be able to present a good budget with sound judgment and experience. And I think Don and I kind of bring that to the table, and we look at projects and we'll tell you what the realistic. Sometimes it's not the easiest to inform, but we try to be honest and try to tell you exactly what we think budgets should be.
To me, it just seems like a lot of money, 460 for a 5-stall or whatever it is.
Right, and again, it's a budget, and we are going to go through the first phase of the construction. It construction budget for the current park was at 260 or 270. When we go through the entire process, we'll see what the true cost is and we'll know, we'll be better informed. But for now, for us, for budget purposes, I think 350 is the right number for construction.
I
You
just
say-
want to be clear, are you talking for all of these bathrooms, that new modular is the one you're talking about? And it will go in all these parks?
The ones that, yes, that is the intent for the city to have a uniform park standard. Yes, that's what we're trying to do.
And what was the conversation about reconstruction of bathrooms? Where is that?
With Hardy and Victoria.
At Ruth Hardy, okay. And they will not get a modular kind of bathroom there?
Not if it's, I think- go ahead, Don.
No, I think there was conversations going on whether or not the Ruth Hardy Park bathrooms had some historic value that we had to be very careful not to. So we had to do some research. That's why we didn't start with the Ruth Hardy Park, because if it is historic, that's gonna throw a wrench in how fast we can work on it. So that was that conversation. And then Victoria Park is such a narrow, small park. I know Victoria Park probably could do the new,
Yeah.
it's a big one.
What is the modular building at James O'Jesse right now? It's a mobile trailer there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just that one will go away.
That's a Band-Aid.
What is that?
It's a rented portable restroom.
It is a restroom. Uh-huh.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Mhm.
Joel, sorry, I missed your comment relating the Demuth ADA Phase 2, $1,600,000, how that relates to the year one allocation of the 285,764. If you proceed with Demuth with additional funding of 285,764, does the Demuth needs for line 11 of $1,600,000, does that number change?
It doesn't, because this is a brand new structure.
That's the add-on. The $1,600,000 is the add-on facility.
The $1,600,000, the actual existing structures that need to be all ADA upgraded. So the original ADA and restroom is for all existing structures at Demuth. This one is a brand new one. This one is the one that's near the pickleball courts, I think. Yeah, that one's going to be demoed and reconstructed with brand new. So that one considered in the original ADA.
Yeah, so Demuth Park ADA Access Phase 2 is like, the snap bar doesn't really have wheelchair access, all the sidewalks kind of going around all the ball fields. There was a whole ADA audit, and then the report said you need to do these repairs to meet the ADA.
Line 11 is upgrade of existing, and the new one for year one is a new modular facility.
So can I just clarify? So the other things that we put on hold are not things necessarily that you're saying we should put back in right now, but you would rather have the paving and these two bathrooms because they could be done more immediate?
That is correct. We have a list right now that's ready to go for the pavement. It's essentially completing the project that was already started. And we have a pavement management program where we have the ability to go out fairly quickly to construct.
So
Sorry.
And then these other ones that were canceled or on hold that you may come back and say were either not needed, they either got other funding, or we put them into the heart of the 5-year plan.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. We did take some of those that were canceled and put them in the 5-year plan already.
And Nancy, I don't know if you're still there. Is the likelihood of getting that 2.8 million back and transferred back?
I can't answer that question. I'm not sure.
So then we get to the point where do we want to use the 5 million and the and 5.5 million, I guess it is, and commit that out of the 7 million right now? Is that what you're asking? What would that total exactly be?
7.6 minus 5.5.
Hmm.
Right? It's that simple, isn't it?
Pretty much.
Approximately,
Okay.
other than the slugs that need to be added back in, but round numbers, maybe there's 7.5 million available from Nancy's projection. And an ask, sorry to put words in anyone's mouth, but then there's the ask from Joel and Dom for 5 million plus 500,000.
Pretty,
Yeah. So, and how do we find out about that 2.8 million, whether that can come back or no? Or whether we could say use that for the street paving?
That would probably have to go through when we go through the budget process or the next quarterly rolling budget update.
Right, and I think this is a good opportunity. I wanted to ask Nancy as well to walk us through when the Measure J Commission votes and approves the money, say we approve this 5 million plus, we still have to do a budget adjustment, correct? Or is it, we have to revise the budget? Nancy, how does that work when we take this recommendation and then what action does council have to take to be able to make it real money for us to use?
I believe in the past that engineering and Marcus has taken back a staff report to council outlining these projects. And once they approve it to appropriate the funds, then we process a budget adjustment and the money goes into those accounts.
And last question I have is, where does that 5 million come from if we only took out 3 million from the street paving? You're saying you want to spend 5 million on street paving?
That's just an ask, right? That your normal budget would be 3 million.
So my personal thing would be to do the 3 million, to do those 2 restrooms, and then request that we could use some of that general fund money for street paving.
I think that's a really good way to approach it.
Yeah, so typically it would have been just the 3 million, correct?
I think there's a lot of good news that's been coming through meeting by meeting, but we still haven't had a chance to digest what other items fell off that the commission might want to plug back in.
That was my point, yes.
Yep.
You say everything I think better than I say it.
It's coming through right here. Thank you.
And I'd rather see roundabout money go towards these restrooms or street paving
I
at this
agree.
point, and give it another year to evaluate that situation. I mean, at this point, it's not been a huge problem.
Can we move that we recommend the 3 million go back for street paving and the Demuth Park restroom in Desert Highland for 285, 764 and 210
Mhm.
now out of our available budget?
I will second that move.
Jill, don't you have to go back to council or no?
Yeah, so to actually make it happen, it's if when we're actually awarding the contract, we would make a motion or we would have the council approve the budget adjustment or the revised budget.
We move to make the recommendation now, right?
Right.
And I second that recommendation.
Call for the vote.
Okay, so we have a motion. Jeffrey, can you say it again, the exact figures?
That out of our current 2021 revised budget, we take 3 million for street paving, 285,764. That's the Demuth Park restroom. Is that the right number?
Yeah.
And 210 for Desert Highland Park restrooms. And approved to go forward with that. And pending any transfer back from the general fund, we look at additional street paving.
Okay, so that is the motion. All in favor of that motion, raise your hand, show your hand. It's a unanimous recommendation.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Joel, for that suggestion. And I know street paving is important to a lot of people.
So how can we recommend now to council that we get some of that general fund money back for additional street paving now? How does the process work?
Nobody wants to answer. I don't know.
I mean, is,
I
yeah,
guess,
that's something that
let
can
me
go
talk
wrong.
to, Joelle and I could talk to Marcus about this and find out what the procedure would be to do this.
He definitely recommended something like that last meeting, and I will have to find out exactly what he said, but I think it was along those lines. I could be wrong.
Yeah, like I think maybe it might be helpful to, after the quarterly budget comes in, to get like a figure of the amount that they're recommending would be coming back to Measure J as opposed to us. It like delays us, you know, like 2
Yeah.
months.
Correct, correct.
Great. All right, Joel, anything else?
No, I think that pretty much concludes my presentation.
Okay, we do have.
I have a
one other-
quick question, which isn't about any of these specific projects, but more just a process and maybe just something, Joel, you could clarify. On Sunrise at Riverside, where the wash is, there's like a crosswalk that without a light. And I know now we have the like flashing crosswalks that have been put up like uptown. I didn't know if there was a requirement for those flashing lights to only be in downtown, or like as we start considering other projects, is that going to be something that is an option in other parts of the city? Do you know?
So definitely,
Was that part of CV Link?
there is CV Link is actually going to go through there, but I think it goes
Yeah.
underneath there. So that there's going to be construction in that area for the CV Link, but I'll try to address the question. We have all over the city requests for different crosswalks, and the lighted crosswalks are very popular. People want them. We go through a whole process where we send you to our community action request forms on our website. And from there, you can start the process if you live in that neighborhood to work with your community to put in a request to the city. And then, you know, it's kind of, this is aside from Measure J, but we have been doing that, and there's been lots of requests all over the city for different things. And that's one popular one that comes. And in addition to that, I don't know, what district are you in, Commissioner Sotto?
I'm in District 2. I'm in Christie's district. So I think that's
So
2.
one of the things we're also working.
No, that's not true.
No, she's 4. Whatever Christie's is, I'm 4.
So we're working on safe routes to school and pedestrian walkability master plan. We're also working on a local road safety plan. Those are, we have grant money on, and with those, the safe routes to school has been asked, trying to get community involvement and requests for these things. So that could be something that you could actually get in touch with them and request, and it'll go on to that document. It'll be a document.
Yeah, I would love, I mean, it is a crosswalk, but cars go so fast down Sunrise that it's kind of scary.
Right. So we can send you all the documents and kind of links to things that will provide good information for you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
And Joel, if I'm not incorrect on this, the flashing crosswalks, and they've added new ones now on, I guess, South or East Palm Canyon Drive. So you'll see them now by Elmer's, kind of in those areas. If I'm not mistaken, that was all part of hotspots, correct?
That was originally a Measure J driven project, correct?
Right, and that originated to Naomi, just for a sense of history, out of 1PS. So they had identified high-risk areas. And then as Joel said, 1PS just sent out an email to a lot of residents, and they're going to look at each district, and you can bring up either pedestrian safety issues or whatever for your district, as they look at the Safe Routes to School program and and pedestrian safety. So that is something that they're evaluating again.
Right, so it's almost taking what was done a long time ago in Measure J and applying it to the entire city. And then creating heat maps and areas where, and generating lists of projects that ultimately would hopefully encompass all these areas that the residents are concerned about. And we'll almost be able to incorporate those into capital projects and move them forward in the future. Look for funding. The big thing is trying to get money for these things. One project we're trying to get money from, we call it SB 821. So we're looking at a fully signalized crosswalk. So that came from some of those conversations and the community involvement and requests. So we're always looking for funding. These reports, when they're complete, are going to be very instrumental in achieving or allowing us to get grant funding.
Great, thank you.
I could just mention a quick thing. I'm sorry.
Okay.
We had Naomi had raised last time with Amy and Brian and I with the Naomi had come up with a template for doing social media updates on Measure J recommendations and approved projects. And Brian and Naomi and I met with Amy, and she has asked their creative director, contracted person to work on this. And they just came to me, I guess, earlier in the week and said, well, we have these projects, which was the James and Jesse, the shade structures and the acoustic thing. And they mentioned the downtown park, which I said I would leave out. So you don't show that we spend $5 million on that right now. But my question is, should we go back with those? They didn't do anything because they wanted to wait till this meeting. So then do we go back with those three things and then these other three things that we have recommended today and suggest that they start promoting those as recommendations? Or do we think there might be a problem with the three today that council may have?
They may not be able to answer that.
So was that directed to us, Commissioner?
No, it's to the rest of the commissioners.
I think, I mean, I made my claim last month. I would say there are two different announcements from Measure J. There were 3 recommendations we made last month, and I think 2 recommendations we made this month. And we look forward to seeing what council does with that.
Okay, including one of them was approved back in January.
Right.
Okay. So I'll write it up and send it to both of you, and then tell me if I'm have it correct, and then we'll recommend they do it.
So can I ask a question? If you put it on social media and the council says no to the proposal we just made today, aren't we giving people information that they can say what happened? And you'll say, council said no?
Well, that was exactly her point.
Yeah, well, I think that Amy and her team need to get approval to do a release anyhow.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I get it.
they may come back and they may say, yes, these are all good things. We want to promote them. And they could potentially come back and say, we don't want to announce this yet until council approves it.
We will learn.
That's our request. This meeting is public, so, you know, it's not, there's no secret that we've recommended it.
Do that.
Every
Okay,
step is a public civic engagement win, you know, so.
I agree with you, Naomi.
Yeah. Okay, can we quickly review some pavilion landscaping palette options? Or do we want to table that to next month?
Is it time sensitive?
Is it time sensitive, Joel? Do we need a decision on this?
The only time sensitive is it just gets hotter, but no, I think it's really, I don't know, Don, you can correct me, but I think if you want to wait a month or maybe, yeah, next commission, we can move forward with it.
But we're not really the deciding factor on the landscaping, are we? We're just giving a recommendation.
The question was whether we give an extra 10,000, right?
Right, it's fine.
So Linda, you're
And it's on mute.
Commissioner Footer, you'll have to unmute.
I would like to recommend doing to the time right now that we discuss this at the next meeting. And I personally would like to go over and really eyeball the plans that they have laid out. I haven't had time to do that, but that would be my recommendation at this point.
And related to that, this is a refresher discussion of the same materials we received at the last meeting, correct? Nothing new has come through the pipeline to consider.
We had just asked for the designs, which they provided.
And I think it was, they were emailed out to everyone.
Oh, at the end of the last meeting?
I think after the meeting, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Oh, I don't recall seeing those. These were the landscape plans?
They are actually landscape plans.
It wasn't at the bid deck, the bid package? I might not have, if it was something else, I might not have received it.
There were
Yeah,
two options that were given to you guys. One was a cut down version and one was a prettier version. And you wanted to see the prettier version to see if it was worth the extra money.
And by extra money, only 10,000.
I'll interject from memory on the materials that we received in conjunction with the last meeting. My position would be if staff recommends that we apply the extra $10,000 because we get more bang and vitality with the plantings and the hardscape, for that amount of money, I think we should absolutely do it if it comes with a recommendation.
Now that the conversation is happening and before you guys make that consideration, I did attend the Parks and Recs Commission meeting where the additional landscaping was discussed. And the decision came down in that commission that they were fine with the lesser version because they didn't really need all the other, talking about the different plans and things that they were going to be adding and weren't required in that area. And I don't think that information ever made it back to the commission. And I'm just right now jogging my memory is that I don't think you have to vote on that anymore. I think the decision was already made, that they were already comfortable with it, and I think forward with it without any additional funding from the commission.
So can this item then just drop off our agenda?
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
Okay. How are we doing with the downtown park? Speaking of landscaping, are we getting close to planting anything?
So that is going to be to watch. Having a focus meeting on it, and definitely looking at when the contractor has enough area and room to plant, and we're definitely, our attention is really focused on the planting.
Can I request we get a detailed update next time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in weekly meetings, so I can fill you in on anything you'd like on the park. And before you go, I think you asked me last time what the structural retrofit cost was. That what it cost to actually retrofit the parking garage was approximately $670,000
Total?
Yeah, just to retrofit the structure.
Why did I think it was so much more?
But I don't know. Maybe there was initial estimates, but the actual structure supporting the park had failed, had some structural instability. To fix that whole thing was around $670,000.
So some questions that, again, have been asked of me because people know I'm on the commission, they see Measure J tied to that park, is they feel it's moving slow. They go by, they don't see a lot of labor happening on that property, a lot of very lack of hard hats. I would think because it is fully funded, why isn't it crawling like ants? I would just think like, wow, that structure should be further along.
The actual structure
is a few times and it's just very quiet.
Right, the police station, the substation is, there's not a lot of work being done inside of it, but we have the same sentiment. We've been in continuous discussions with the contractor, asking them to move along and to yeah, it is really well noted that they have not been moving as we would like them to.
Yeah, I mean, if the tribe picks up the cultural center and spa again, I think even after taking a year off, they're still gonna beat us, so.
Yeah, no, it's a constant conversation with our contractor. There's a lot that we're pushing for them to get done. So yeah,
Okay,
going slower than any of us would want.
yeah, all right.
Is there anything else we need for tonight's meeting?
I have a question.
Because we're about 20 minutes over what we're supposed to be. I don't want to keep anybody, but go ahead.
Nancy, this is for
Yeah.
you.
Sure.
The planning commission is televised.
Okay.
I, as a citizen, voted for Measure J. It was actually a vote by the community, and yet we're not on the air. And I'd like you to find out for us why we're not on the air. The planning commission is. And this is
Well,
an example of tonight's meeting. These are important facts. We've talked about the fact that we want the public to know that Measure J is here. We're active, we're working, we're doing things. And yet I look at this and I watched the planning commission meeting the other day and we're not on the air. And I'd like to know what constitutes the reason, if you could find out for us, why we're not on the air.
absolutely. Is it like if you go to the channel 14 and Palm Springs that they're on, the planning commission is being filmed that way?
Yeah,
Or is it more of videos?
no, they're on channel 17.
17, sorry.
That's okay. Just the way it always was, just the way it was before there was the virus and we were on 17.
We were?
Yeah,
We can check into that and
Yeah, definitely. We'll look into that. You know, we've had a little change of staff here and Chantel's doing an amazing job for not being on a committee before. So I appreciate all her effort. So I'll work with her and the city clerk and we see what happened. Sid, I appreciate you
Okay.
bringing that up.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other last minute? We are over time.
I move we adjourn.
Okay.
A second.
Second to adjourn,
Second.
that was Soto. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful
Thank
evening.
you. Have a great
Thanks, everyone.
weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All right.
thanks for
bye.
everybody's work.
All right. Thank you.